From the Squamish Chief.
This is the Squamish Sound. I'm Keili Bartlett.
And I'm Stephen Chua. This is the 19th episode of our weekly podcast.
You'll hear the story behind the story as we take you into the newsroom. We'll talk about what did and didn't get into the newspaper this week.
On the show today, we're covering Pi the Principal at Mamquam Elementary. We also covered a workplace incident, and we'll do more on how we report on those issues. A new restaurant in the famed Mags 99 location. Finally, maternity and parental leave is coming to Squamish Municipal Council. First off,
welcome to our very exciting Pi the Principal Assembly.
we're going to be doing a little bit of a fun story here. It was Pi the Principal Day at Mamquam Elementary recently. Keili was there to bear witness to it all. What happened?
So all of the students were gathered in their little gymnasium to learn who among them raised the most for the Heart and Stroke Foundation this year. So last year, Mamquam Elementary raised $12,000. They'd originally planned to try to get $1,000, so it by far exceeded their expectations. So this year they decided to set their goal at $5,000, and they made the most out of all of the schools in the coastal Vancouver area, and
Whoa.
They raked in $17,401.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Very good job for them.
Very exciting.
So tell us how this ties into a principal getting a pie in the face.
Yes. So the principal, Mr. Massey, definitely took one for the team with this. The 3 top earning students got to each pie him in the face.
Wow.
And there's no way to really describe the excitement in a room full of young elementary school students who get to, stick one to the man. So
yeah.
Let's take a listen.
So I would like to offer Evan a chance to be the first one as a top fundraiser to Pi the Principal.
Wow, well, I really wish I got that opportunity to do that when I was a kid.
I can't even imagine. Like, you could just feel the electricity in the room of all of those kids. Before we started, even as they were filing in and getting ready and sitting down, they were just going, Pi Day, Pi Day. Like, this is what they live for at that age, right? So good on you guys, and congrats again for raising so much money.
All right.
All right, so we're going to transition to a more serious news topic that comes up occasionally in Squamish. So the other day, we covered a workplace incident on 3rd Avenue at a site. Somebody fell and was taken to hospital, and we're going to continue to work on that story to bring you some more updates. But we decided today to talk a little bit about what our role as reporters is when we come across a breaking news scene or an incident where somebody's been injured in the public sphere. So that's on the streets, that could be on the highway, it could be a workplace incident like we've had recently. And basically, and you can weigh in on this, Stephen, you've also covered a lot of these kind of incidents.
Definitely. Well, I guess the one big point of discussion that we would think would be helpful to address at this point is the natural reaction for just about everyone is usually like, why do you do this? Why do you cover this? You shouldn't cover this. And it's a natural and absolutely understandable reaction. But there are a number of reasons why newspapers and various media cover it. I mean, I guess if you were to look on the more cynical side, these do generate, like, I'm not going to lie, they do generate interest in the community. But aside from just a sheer numbers perspective, there are a number of cases and arguments for why this information needs to be documented in the public record.
So covering these kind of incidents, it can spark change depending on the cause of the incidents, what kind of situation there was, what safety measures were or weren't there. And it can affect change. It can bring attention to an issue that maybe people don't realize is there. One thing for us as reporters is when we get there is to be eyewitnesses. So we're making sure that when we're there, we're reporting accurately what's happening. Not everybody can be there. Not everybody should be there. And so what we can do is when rumors are going around town, somebody's been hurt, we can say, this is the location, this is the time, this is what we know right now to be true, so that rumors don't spread misinformation, because that can create a panic and that can do more damage than any kind of good.
Absolutely. Information will circulate regardless, so it's best to have the most accurate information circulating.
Right, and sometimes it helps that people are able to access that without having to call their own systems. They can just look and see, this is what we know right now, for sure. And that is a good way to disseminate information as well.
Since we're on the topic of research and change, one thing to I think is very useful to note is no good or positive change ever happened in a void of information. So taking it back like to probably a little bit more of a distant and extreme example, like before, workplaces were not necessarily good, happy, positive places to be in. Like I'm sure everyone's learned in school the Industrial Revolution, and it was only after widespread publicity of a lot of routine and very preventable workplace incidents, accidents, and sometimes not accidents probably wouldn't be the right way to categorize them, that people started realizing, these places are kind of horrific. We should make change. Now, we're not saying that any places right now still have this, but it is good to know the circumstances of what's happening because, I guess, just to reiterate, no positive change ever comes in a void of information.
Like, I once worked in a community, not here, but I worked in a community where there were incidents within a span of 6 months where people were getting hit by cars in this one stretch of road. And our reporting helped highlight that there was an issue with the safety measures, the crosswalks on that area, and why they could or could not be fixed and what could be done about it, and the different circumstances that created that danger. So that's one example.
Absolutely.
But another thing is when we get to a scene like that, and that's our intention, is to bring that kind of information to the public, you're going to hear, it might not be good news, it probably won't be, but we try to do that with as much sensitivity as possible. When you see a reporter with a camera and you've also just seen something traumatic, it can be your first reaction is you don't want them there. Why are they there? And I totally understand that. Adrenaline's pumping. It's easy to channel fear and being scared and seeing something that you didn't want to see into a different kind of reaction. And sometimes people don't even realize they're doing it. But we do our best with our cameras to capture the sense of what's going on. We're not there to get the gory details. We're not there to capture somebody's worst moment. We're not there to get blood. We don't print gory photos in the newspaper. And a lot of what we hear is, well, what if the family, this is how they found out? We do have families too. Our families have received bad news before. And one thing is, there's no good way to hear bad news. I think that what we can do is try to do it with as much precision and as much grace as we can. And I know when I had a family member who I found out that they had passed away through the news. And as a reporter at the time, I read the stories and I was glad that I had that information and I didn't have to call mourning family members and bug them as a distant relative and ask what happened and ask hard questions. I was able to just know what had happened and express my sympathy for my extended family members. Let's talk now about a story that people were really excited to hear about, and that is what's happening at the former Mags 99 location.
So basically, at the former Mags 99 location, a lot of people were surprised to see that Mags 99, just maybe like a few days ago,
seemingly
it just
closed overnight.
It seemed to just disappear. At a certain point, the building was empty, or at least empty looking, and there was a sign saying like Mags is basically gone. We're leaving. We're going to another location.
Another location in Squamish. So they're not operating at that location, but they have not completely disappeared. And they are also going to have what they call a mobile unit, or
a food truck, basically.
A food truck.
Essentially, yeah. So a lot of people were very surprised to hear this news. And
probably hungry too.
Very hungry, absolutely. And that's why we decided to kind of poke in and see what was happening. Apparently, while Mags has
flown the coop, a new restaurant hosted by some former Mags employees, basically their management staff, has opened in its place, the exact same location on the highway. It's called Sunny Chibas.
You know, I'm a chef, so I got to bring a couple new exciting things going, but, you know, our core menu is still going to have the favorites.
Aaron Lawton. There's also Diana Fredrickson. She is the general manager, and she has been in charge of making the everyday stuff happen.
It was time for both of us to move on and do our own thing. We wanted to create our own business. That was us. We were able to have the freedom to do what we needed to do for the business.
There's a new person coming up to this. He is Scott McQuaid.
I approached these guys and basically asked them if they wanted to partner. They were excited to join because I know that these guys are proven operators.
McQuaid is probably best known around town as kind of a real estate guy. A lot of people, like the old Scotty's liquor store, is possibly how most people have recognized that name. That was Scott McQuaid's liquor store. He used to own the Hotel Squamish building. The backstory behind this is a little bit more complicated than, I guess, the average restaurant opening. Basically, for whatever reason, the lease for the Mags property came up. McQuaid became aware of that, picked it up, and decided to partner with former Mags staff. And so basically, there's going to be two Mexican joints in town. One is going to be Sunny Chibas, and one is going to be the old Mags flagship name. The next question that we often hear is, why can't my local business be covered for its opening? And like that's a fair question because like this is a local business that we just covered. We splashed it on the front page. It's opening. But the reason for that is basically because Mags has been such an institution and because it has disappeared under such relatively unusual circumstances.
Right. I think it was an unexpected situation. People didn't really know that was coming.
Yeah.
And, you know, the location of Mags 99 or the former Mags 99 on the side of the highway, the Chief's in the background, everyone sees it coming into town. It's pretty iconic.
Absolutely.
Most people know about what they offer there. So it was a bit out of left field, I suppose. And so many people wanted to know more.
Yeah.
And as reporters and as writing for the newspaper, part of what we do is we give people the information they need to know and the information they want to know. And so that drives a lot of our stories.
Yeah, absolutely. And like to further like emphasize how iconic it is, like I've gone down to Vancouver and most people that I've met, like unless they're climbers or bikers or whatever, don't really know much about Squamish. They're just like, oh, it's like a stop on the way to Whistler.
Yeah.
But almost all of them will be like, oh man, like, but I tried Mags.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then the other thing is local businesses open in small communities all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much what's supposed to happen, right? So unless there's something different or unusual, that's not necessarily news.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we're bringing in our editor, Jennifer Thuncher. She's here to tell us what she thinks is her thing of the week. Jen, what's going on?
That was a pregnant pause.
Yes, it was.
Get it? Pregnant?
Oh, that's foreshadowing.
Okay.
Foreshadowing.
So the thing this week that I thought was more interesting than any of our other stories, though it wasn't clicked on as much, bad readers, was your story on maternity leave and council. So can you just give us a little bit of background for people who didn't see that amazing story of what's going on there?
Okay, well, so basically what is happening is council has voted unanimously in favor of a policy that would allow any elected officials sitting on council to take paid maternity or parental leave. And it's something that's actually, I think not a whole lot of people realize that municipal government in British Columbia, at least, does not have that right enshrined in the Local Government Act. So like every employee in the province, this is a given. This isn't something that's up for debate anymore. It's law.
Correct, yeah.
But for local governments, this is actually not the default. So what has happened, is basically municipalities earlier on, maybe about 2016, they were saying, hey, we want this to become part of the Local Government Act. And at this point, a resolution has been made by the UBCM, that's the Union of British Columbia Municipalities, to ask the province for this. They've asked the province for this. As of now, the province has not changed the Local Government Act to make that the default. Mm-hmm. So if a municipality does want to have a policy like that, they have to basically make it up themselves. And that is what has happened here in Squamish. And it's a little bit of a special thing because apparently, at least according to the district's own research, they were, before passing this policy into a reality, they did a bit of a count to see, hey, who else has this? And maybe we can learn from whoever else has a similar kind of regulation or policy just like this. And it turns out the only one they could find was Whistler, at least in British Columbia.
Right.
Yeah. So
hard to believe.
Yeah. If the research is correct, then that would make Squamish basically the second one in all of BC to have a formal policy for maternity and parental leave. Now, people have probably been able to take those leaves in the past in other municipalities, but it's basically a leave of council that people have to vote on. And
it's not enshrined.
It's not enshrined, basically, yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, that's the whole story.
Great. Well, let's hear what Mayor Karen Elliott had to say about why she brought this forward.
The reason I asked staff to bring it forward is that we are the only level of government that doesn't have maternity and parental leave rights. And we are a very young demographic in Squamish, and we don't want people to opt out of running for public office simply because they feel that they can't fulfill their dreams of having a family. I don't think they should give that up.
Right. So, as you know, I have 4 kids, 3 of whom I gave birth to. The other one hatched. No, he's my stepson. And so it's an issue that obviously personally I took a lot of interest in over the years. And it's something that's been talked about. It's hard to believe the span of time that has happened in my lifetime where it hasn't really changed, to see that we're sitting in 2019 and that this would be an issue here in Squamish. Mm-hmm. So last year, 2017, 2018, it was quite popularized when the New Zealand Prime Minister was pregnant while in office, or would have been pregnant while in office, and then was elected.
Right.
And she faced a barrage of things that were thrown at her by reporters, male reporters mostly, about being able to have a child while in office. And then that goes back. So 30 years ago, I recall like the Pakistani president, I always have trouble saying her name, Benazir Bhutto. Mm-hmm. She was pregnant while in office. So, and the same kind of questions were thrown at her. So it's fast forward 2019 and we're still talking about this. And even for, I think this will apply to males too, right? Who are taking paternity leave.
Right.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
So it goes both ways. It's not a fully female issue, but
that's right. Yeah. Anyone who's partnered with a person giving birth can also apply for parental leave.
Right.
Or adopting a child.
Or adopting a child,
Yes.
which is an interesting aspect. But when you put yourself outside of it, it is crazy to think, and it crossed my mind for different things when I had my children, just to think, oh, I couldn't help run Squamish because, what if I'm a young person just newly married, and I might want to have a child. Oh, I'm not allowed to do that. It just seems a little crazy. So interesting that Squamish has brought it up, and unfortunate it has taken this long.
Yeah.
But great that you covered it, and go read that story, everybody.
Yes, go read it. Go read.
Please. We'll buy you a tidbit.
No, we won't.
No, we won't.
All right, Jen, thanks for your time.
Ciao.
The Squamish Sound is brought to you by the Squamish Chief. The music for this episode was produced by Stephen Chua, cover photo by Clayton Matthews. Have a story tip? Give us a call at 604-892-9161. Send an email to news@squamishchief.com. You can read these stories and more online at squamishchief.com, the newspaper, and have the news delivered to your door every week.